Welcome to Down to the Wire here on Vegas Insider. Hope you're having a good Wednesday. Kevin Rogers with you, and we're looking forward to tonight's show. Got a lot to get to. We'll talk college football week 0 with Kyle Hunter, who was the money leader in college football last season, had an incredible year in 2021. He'll try to repeat it in 2022, and we'll look at some of the week 0 games with Kyle, and also he's got a baseball play for tonight as well. And also I have a couple best bets for Major League Baseball, a couple sides, and a couple strikeout props that we will look at coming up in just a little bit. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about Bet365 and new users. This is a great deal. Vegas Insider has teamed up now with Bet365 to offer new users an amazing welcome offer. Bet365 Sportsbook is offering an exclusive bonus. Customers can bet $1 and get $200 in free bets. Users must use the code NJVIP at signup and be located in a legal betting state where Bet365 is licensed. This is for new users only, and full terms and conditions apply. That is Bet365. All right, let's bring him on now. Kyle Hunter. He led Vegas Insider in units last year in college football. He's great at totals in college football. So looking forward to his views on the upcoming season and some games for week 0. Kyle, it's good to see you again. And I guess the first question out of the gate is, when did that studying begin for the 2022 season for college football?
You know, the first time I got going on it was June. I know some people even get ahead of that, but, spending time on baseball and finishing up the NBA season as well. But really been working on this really hard through August. I've spent a lot of long nights and early mornings working on the college football prep. So I certainly hope it pays off. Like you said, I had a great season last year, 53-27, just a really good season. It's hard to get 66% or, whatever percent I hit last year. And then I'm just going to do my best. We'll see. My long-term track record has been really good here in college football, and especially, like you said, totals. Definitely my specialty. If you go back to 2009, all my totals, I've hit 57%, and that's on over 1,200 plays. So I like the long-term record better because the bigger sample size is a little more representative.
So what worked for you last year? You talked about the totals, the high percentage. Explain to the viewers what your process was, at least maybe from the totals perspective, because that's where we really specialize in. But what you did, how many games you looked at per week, and I guess in a sense, did you get a lot of breaks because of that record that things really broke your way last year? What was it all about last year, 2021?
2021 was a little bit different for me than the average season because usually I have more plays than 80 plays. It was a little bit light season for me. The year before, in the 2020 COVID year where things were kind of crazy, I had a kind of subpar season for me in college football. I decided last year I was going to really stick to totals, and I was going to have a smaller amount of plays because of all the uncertainties surrounding COVID and who was going to play, and there were so many transfers and everything. So I cut down on the volume. I really focused on teams that had new coaches, teams that had new assistants, things like that, up their style of play instead of just looking at teams. I like to say we know who Iowa is. Kirk Ferentz has been there for 20-some years. They're going to be exactly the same as what they were the year before. They're not very good on offense. They're amazing on defense, and you wonder how they win so many games. But some of these other teams, they look completely different than they did a year before. I was able to take advantage of that, especially at the beginning of the year, Kevin. Last year, I think it was 2 weekends in a row I went 8-0 in week 2 and week 3 or something like that in college football. So really hard to replicate that kind of success. But early in the season has generally been a better time for me because I feel like my edge is even bigger then.
What are you looking at? We'll get to week 0 in just a moment, but what are you looking at in September with a lot of non-conference games? I know that the Big Ten has now mixed in more conference games early. Penn State's playing Purdue in week 1, but for the most part, a lot of these teams are playing unfamiliar opponents. And what kind of edge do you think you can get in these games?
Well, I'll tell you, the unders have actually done well in week 0, week 1, the first game. When the totals are set higher, I believe it's about 56 or 57% of totals have gone under here in the last 10 or 12 years. If you just look at totals of 55.5 or higher. So, that's been a good angle. I'm usually a bit more of an under better. I know some people who follow me are like, I like to root for the over, why are you taking 2/3 unders? That usually has worked out pretty well for me. But the other thing that I'm trying to do here early on is I'm also keeping an eye on the weather. Sometimes when you get these hurricanes or big storms blow in, I try to take advantage of things like that because late in the season, everybody talks about the wind and snow and things like that, but not as many people pay attention early in the season. And I think that's where you can get an extra edge. And like I said, I'm really looking for coaching changes. And the other thing I love to do is look at under the radar teams. I think you know that, Kevin. I'm betting these games between two teams that, some people are like, I don't know why you want to bet on that game, but that's where I usually find the most value.
When you talk about the coaching changes, Kyle, these new coaches that come in, do you think that a lot of them want to be close to the vest and be conservative and not try to make mistakes with their quarterback? Do you find that's the case, or some of them just let it ride and let's just go? And, Oklahoma's one example that they have a new coach in Brett Venables. Lincoln Riley's off to USC, but he's got a new quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, who's been around at UCF. So it's a new coach, new quarterback. I'm not necessarily asking for your thoughts in Oklahoma, but just something where you maybe have a new coach, new quarterback, what you think their philosophy is.
Yeah, I think it's dependent on how they did the last season. If the team was really successful last season and the coach left, I think it's hard for them to make a big change because, if they change everything and it goes south, then they're all to blame for that. But if they had a really bad season, then why would you keep it exactly the same? A team I think of is like Duke. Duke's been so terrible for a long time here the last few seasons. Duke's going to play slower, and they'll want to try to play a lower scoring game if they possibly can. They have a defensive-minded head coach. The problem is with that kind of strategy for a bad team is if you get way behind, you kind of have to speed up. So as far as Oklahoma, I think they're a bit tricky because, they were so good last year, but they bring in a defensive-minded guy, but a fast-paced offensive coordinator, a guy who's seen the tempo be very quick everywhere he's been. So that's one of those teams that I'd rather just kind of wait back on. I have some teams I have circled that I want to bet early, and then other teams that I want to watch their first game or two and then try to get an edge for like week 3, week 4.
Now, looking at week 0, Kyle, and the, premier game you can say, we talked about Penn State, Purdue being a Big Ten opener next week. Nebraska Northwestern, they start things off on Saturday. The game's in Ireland. So a lot of changes. The teams are there already. Got to deal with the time change, maybe some weather. Nebraska, a heavy favorite in this game. Obviously, Scott Frost on a very, very, very hot seat with the way Nebraska's been the last few years. But Nebraska, heavy favorite here from a total perspective. How do you judge? I know you're looking at the weather in Ireland, but as far as the travel and all these unfamiliar, stadium you're playing in, how do you judge all of that going to Saturday?
So the total here is a difficult one, and I want to be transparent and say last year one of my losses was Northwestern and Nebraska under. I remember betting that game and being really frustrated because Northwestern's defense couldn't do anything right. I mean, Nebraska ran for 427 rushing yards in that game. Northwestern allowed almost 6 yards per carry in the Big Ten on the ground last year. Really, that's pretty stunning to me. A team coached by Pat Fitzgerald could be that bad on defense. Talent-wise, I still see them as a very weak team on defense. You would think they'd be much better, at least somewhat better, because how could you be that bad? Fitzgerald's been a good underdog. He was 46-37 against the spread as an underdog since 2008. He was 2-6 last year as an underdog, so he kind of ruined his record some last year. As far as the game being in Ireland, I really don't know who this helps or what it does to the total. I guess I would lean to thinking that might be good for the under. I think if I were forced to bet a total here, I'd probably bet the under. Fortunately, I'm not forced to bet a total here, and I don't want to bet a total on this game. In fact, I think that the big question here is Casey Thompson steps in for Adrian Martinez. What changes about this offense? And Mark Whipple, the new offensive coordinator, who I think is a good hire. The problem Nebraska has is their offensive line's pass protection is really weak. And it's hard to run the type of offense that Whipple wants to run if you're going to have a really bad offensive line. So they need to pick it up, or Nebraska could still have turnover problems because Casey Thompson has had some turnover issues in the past as well. So as far as this game, from a side perspective, I can't lay 13 points with Nebraska. I mean, there's enough unknowns about this team that I'm not laying 2 touchdowns with Nebraska. Am I excited to bet Northwestern? No, I'm not excited to bet Northwestern. But if I had to bet this game, I'd have to hold my nose and bet them.
Well, we saw last year too, Kyle. Nebraska played Illinois in that first game. They were laying 7 and ended up losing that game on the road. So obviously a lot of pressure on Scott Frost last year. Even more pressure. You're laying 2 touchdowns here in the opener against Northwestern. So we'll see how that one turns out. Now, a game back on the mainland. You have a couple of Conference USA games this week. FAU Charlotte's one of them, but also UTEP. They are facing North Texas. And what's interesting about this game, Kyle, North Texas was laying 4. That number's down to a pick 'em or even 1 at some places. What do you think about this game with North Texas making that trip to El Paso?
Yeah, I like this game. I think this might be my favorite game of the week as far as just a game I want to see, a nice matchup. I had to sport the North Texas hat tonight. This is a team that North Texas. I like North Texas. I think Littrell's a good coach. They started out the season last year in disappointing fashion. Then they finish really strong, get to a bowl game. To me, there's 2 things in this game that really stand out. First is UTEP lost a ton on offense. I mean, Jacob Cowing, Garrett, really good receivers. I think it's really hard to see UTEP being that successful from the passing game. Hardison is a decent quarterback, but if you look at their stats from last year, Kevin, this is a team that had some massive, big negative plays, and they are able to get out of it because of third down, massive explosive plays on offense. They weren't consistently good on offense, but they're getting these, gashing teams really through the air occasionally. The plays are going to keep happening without those 2 superstars on the outside. So I think UTEP's going to want to run the ball a lot, play slowly. They would want this game to go under, I think. North Texas is the team that wants a higher scoring game. And if you look at North Texas, Austin Awney, 29 years old. It's crazy to see a 29-year-old starting at quarterback. This is a guy that's clearly a veteran. He knows the offense well. North Texas offensive line is tremendous. And to me, that's a huge key in this game. I think it's interesting that the line has moved to where it is. I would have to bet North Texas if I were betting a side in this game because UTEP, while they have a good rushing defense, their secondary is down, and UTEP's offense, I think, is far worse than they were last year. And if you look back at their schedule last year, UTEP really didn't beat anybody good. They beat teams that they should beat. They didn't really step up in class well. I think North Texas has more talent than does UTEP. The thing that makes me not want to bet this very big, UTEP does have a good home field advantage. El Paso, I think the crowd will be going pretty good there in this one because they actually get some eyes on their game here in this one. And week 0 kind of gives you a chance to see these teams that are usually not going to get the attention throughout the course of the season. But my leans in this game would be North Texas and the under. I think UTEP's the team that I want to bet unders with throughout the season. In general, North Texas is probably a team I prefer to take overs with, but they have a really good defensive player there also in Davis. So there are some good defensive players in this game. UTEP's going to try to stall this game out. I'm liking North Texas or the under here.
Well, a couple more notes on that, Kyle, that North Texas, they were 1-6 last year. They won their final 5 games to become bowl eligible. They actually beat UTSA, handed them their first loss. They destroyed them late in the season. And UTEP, on the flip side, they lost 4 of their final 5. And you mentioned, beating a lot of teams that, you should have beat. So, and also a revenge game for UTEP. North Texas beat them last year by 3. So interesting matchup between those two. So let's transition to one game in week 1, which is next Saturday in Atlanta. It's Oregon and Georgia. Oregon's head coach was on Kirby Smart's staff last year, so some changes there because Mario Cristobal's in Miami. And we'll see what Oregon does now, traveling cross country to take on a Georgia team, defending national champions, Kyle, and they're heavy favorites here in basically a home game going from Athens to Atlanta.
Yeah, this is a game that I have several thoughts on this one that I think could be helpful from a betting standpoint. If you look at a total of, 52, I believe now? Yeah, 52, 17.5. Kevin, that's a pretty low total to have 17.5 point spread. I mean, I like to look at these correlations between totals and sides. And I mean, you're telling me that Oregon's not going to score very many points at all in this handicap, which that might be right. Having said that, I think I like the under in this game if I was going to bet anything on the total, because Georgia is not going to play quick. They're going to run the football. I still think Stetson Bennett's not that good. And, don't send me messages talking about Stetson Bennett won a championship and he's amazing. I like Stetson Bennett. I really do. I like to root for him, but he is a pretty good quarterback who's in a nice system. He had great players around him. Now they don't have an amazing backfield. They lost their top 2 running backs. They lost Pickens and Burton on the outside at wide receiver. Obviously, Bowers is really good at tight end, but I think this Georgia offense is less talented than a year ago. Their offensive line's clearly good, but Oregon's a good defense, and Dan Lanning obviously knows this Georgia team really well. I would think he would have some tricks up his sleeve. I kind of feel bad for Dan Lanning. He has to go play the team that he just was coaching in his first game, and of course, it's the team that just won the championship. Tough spot for him for sure. Georgia, 10-5 against the spread last year, won the national championship. I think it's going to be hard to find value betting on them here, especially at the beginning of this year, because the odds makers are going to be so high on them, and understandably so. I think Georgia has to be down at least a little bit on defense, but they're going to be very good on defense. Offensively, like I said, less weapons. Oregon without Dye and Verdell at running back, and then Bo Nix comes in. We got the Bo Nix experience back. Who knows what's going to happen with Bo Nix? I do think this is probably a decent game to take an under, and I would lean toward Oregon plus 17.5 here. It's not something I love, but I'm not laying that many points against a well-coached team in Oregon with a good defense.
Yeah, and Georgia, think about that. I mean, it's last year, but 2 of their final 3 games were against Alabama, and they had the Michigan game in between. So Oregon is not exactly, some small school either, but it'll be curious to see what Georgia does with Oregon going cross country, a new team. And like you said, with Dan Lanning, that this is for him a very motivating game, not only because it's his first game as head coach at Oregon, also it's his former team. So he wants to probably put out, a good effort there. Now, Major League Baseball tonight, Kyle, you do have a prop play, Diamondbacks Royals. What do you like there?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this game, something that really stands out to me is Zach Gallen. The way he's been pitching lately is insane. I'm just looking through the pitching log here. He last game shut out San Francisco, 0 walks and 12 strikeouts. He's pitched 7 innings, and 7 1/3 here in the last 3 games. I'm going to take the over on number of outs here. It's over 18.5 at -110. If you actually just look at his splits since the All-Star break, I mean, pretty insane how good this guy has been. If you look at it, 39 innings pitched, 7 walks, 43 strikeouts, a 0.92 ERA, and his FIP during that time is 1.53. He's been off the scales good here lately, and Kansas City's offense doesn't make me think that they would have any success against him here either. So I think Zach Gallen's in a good spot here to have a very good game. I would kind of like any props, positive props about him over on strikeouts, things like that. But I'm going to take the over on the number of outs here for Zach Gallen.
Kyle Hunter, you could find his picks at Vegas Insider. Very excited for him to, in a sense, defend his crown to be the college football money leader again. And you can find him on Twitter at Kyle Hunter Picks. And Kyle does a great job, not only in college football, but also in baseball, also basketball. He does it all. And very excited to have him with us again. Kyle, thanks so much for the time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Take care.
All right. That is Kyle Hunter. And he just had a fantastic season last year in college football. And I know he'll say that it's going to be hard to duplicate, but you know what? You're on a run. You got to ride it. So we'll see what Kyle has. You can check out his week 0 picks on Vegas Insider. Now let's take a look at our selections for Major League Baseball tonight, our best bets. And we have 2 sides that we're going to focus on. And I said last night, find that underdog that's going to come through, a big underdog to win. Not a lot of them. It was a lot of chalk came through last night. So we'll see what happens tonight. There's already been a handful of games today. But the first game we're going to look at, the White Sox and the Orioles. They meet up at Camden Yards in Baltimore. Last night, the Orioles were down 2-0 in the first, came back with 3 in the bottom of the first, and they ended up beating Chicago. They beat Dylan Cease. And Baltimore, who would have thought towards the end of August they have a better record than Chicago? But that's the case. And now Lucas Giolito takes them out tonight. I'm going to go with the White Sox as my best bet. Now, last night we split on our picks. So we're 2-2, actually 2-3 because I added San Diego. So I'm not going to forget that I did that. I shouldn't have done that. But we went 1-1 and then 0-1 on her bonus pick. So went 1-2 total. But we won with the Diamondbacks. We lost with the Rangers. We lost with the Padres. So now you see Lucas Giolito there and the White Sox. I do like this spot for a couple reasons. One, Giolito's been better on the road of late, and he's allowed 7 earned runs his last 5 road starts. In that span, Chicago's 3-2. 2 of the losses came with the bullpen blowing a late lead. Secondly, Chicago 6-1 in their last 7 game twos of a road series when they're coming off a loss. So when Chicago loses the opener of a road series, they normally bounce back. 6-1 the last 7. Let's take Chicago in that spot. Now, the second game we're going to look at, the Blue Jays and the Red Sox in Boston. Toronto has dominated Boston recently. They've won 4 in a row at Fenway. They've pretty much bombed them in all the games. I couldn't really think of another adjective there, but it's been terrible. I'm going to go with the Red Sox tonight. I do like Boston, and Xander Bogaerts is not in the lineup for the Red Sox, but I do think the Red Sox are worth a look this evening, and they have Brian Bayo taking the mound. He's looking for his first major league win. He's one of the top prospects in Boston's system, and he's facing off against Jose Barrios. Barrios has beaten the Red Sox twice this year. Also, Barrios is coming off an underdog win against the Yankees his last time out, so I wonder how he's going to fare in this next start against Boston, already beating them twice this year. The Red Sox should be pretty motivated. I know their lineup isn't as strong as Toronto's is, but still, Brian Bayo, hopefully he comes around. Maybe get 5 innings from him tonight. But if he comes around, pitches well, I'm going to take a shot with the Red Sox here. So those are our 2 picks. White Sox, Red Sox, take all the Sox tonight. And looking for a 2-0 evening. Now, let's take a look at our strikeout props for tonight. Now, the 2 highest strikeout props for the night action, because a couple guys already went today with 6.5 strikeouts as their props. Number 1 is Shane McClanahan of the Rays, and he is facing the Angels. So McClanahan, again, a heavy favorite in that game, and we actually have a strikeout prop on his opposing pitcher in a second. But McClanahan, he's at 6.5. You see that over at -145, so it's heavy juice there. He's coming off a no decision against the Royals his last time out. I don't have much of an opinion on this prop, but the second one, another lefty later on, Andrew Heaney, he's going to start against the Brewers, obviously with the Dodgers now. But Heaney at 6.5 strikeouts, he's at -125 for the under. And it's kind of interesting that Andrew Heaney, who bounced around a little bit, now found a home with the Dodgers. He's a pretty reliable pitcher with this LA staff. And with Clayton Kershaw hurt, with Walker Buehler hurt, they're depending on all these other guys. Tony Gonsolin, who won last night, Tyler Anderson, guy that bounced around with the Pirates and the Mariners. So now Haney's another guy that is someone the Dodgers trying to depend on, but that's strikeout total 6.5. Staying away from that one. Here are the 2 strikeout props we have for tonight. I mentioned Rays Angels, and they're continuing their series in St. Pete. Tampa Bay won the first 2 games of that series against the Angels. Mike Mayers, not Mike Myers, Mike Mayers. He is starting for LA tonight. That total's at 4.5. I saw it at DraftKings down to 3.5, but 4.5, I like the under on Mike Mayers' strikeouts. Now, if you don't know who he is, he has been in the bullpen the entire season for the Angels. This is his first start tonight. His last 3 starts, 4, 5, and 4 strikeouts out of the bullpen. So he has the ability to get strikeouts. My issue is this. I don't know if he's going to last more than 3 innings or so. He's gone 4 innings-ish in relief in some of those appearances recently, but I just don't think that he's going to be a guy that's going to go very long. It could be 2 innings. You saw the total drop from 4.5 to 3.5. I'm going to rely on the under there. And if you're at 3.5, you can still get plus money on the under if you want to take a shot with that. But I do like the under on Mike Mayer's strikeouts tonight against Tampa Bay. Now the second strikeout prop. Kyle Hunter said Zach Gallen, he likes over on his outs tonight. And I'm actually going the opposite way, not on the outs, but on the strikeouts. Zach Gallen, Diamondbacks Royals tonight. They continue their series in Kansas City. It's a really good pitching matchup. In fact, Zach Gallen against Brady Singer. Singer's been good for the Royals of late. He's picked up some good underdog wins. He's a dog again tonight, but Gallen is not allowed to run in his last 3 starts. I like Zach Gallen under strikeouts, and I'll tell you why. So Gallen has been on a big run. I think it's 7-1 to the over his last 8 starts on his strikeout props. Now you see that you get plus 105 on Zach Gallen under 5.5 strikeouts. He faced Kansas City earlier this season. He struggled. He gave up 6 runs in that game, had 4 strikeouts at home. The Royals, I don't know if they figured him out necessarily, but they got to Zach Gallen. And I know that he's pitching really well now, and he's gone through 3 consecutive starts without allowing a run. He did so against the Giants. He had 12 strikeouts his last time out. But I feel like it's going to be a regression sooner or later. So we're going to go with the under on Zach Gallen's strikeouts. Last night, I forgot to mention this, we went to Splitsville again. We built a house in Splitsville, apparently. Dylan Cease, we hit the under on his strikeouts. That worked out. We lost on the over on Corbin Burns' strikeouts against the Dodgers. He was terrible. He got racked. First inning, Mookie Betts had a leadoff double. The Dodgers just totally ran him out. So we went 1-1 with those. So 2-2 so far this week on the strikeout props. Let's see if we can go 4-2 if we can get a couple winners tonight. Now, take a quick look at some of the games from around Major League Baseball earlier, or at least some of the games in progress. The Braves beat the Pirates 14-2. It's just easy with that. The Braves, they sweep the Pirates. They go 7-0 against Pittsburgh this year. A couple run line wins the last 2 nights. The Tigers actually knocked off the Giants. That was a good win for them. 6-1 in Detroit. They were plus 130 today. So nice win for them, went under. Texas was up 9-0 after the second. They beat Colorado 16-4. Martin Perez with the win there. The A's beat the Marlins in Oakland 3-2. And Jesus Luzardo, first time he's facing the A's since he got traded to the Marlins. And another under there. They went over last night, barely, because the A's got 3 in the ninth. But that one, 7 total, 3-2 final Oakland wins. How about Cleveland? They just keep playing well. They're up 7-0 on San Diego, bottom of the 7th inning in that game at Petco Park. Cal Quantrill against his former team. He was once a Padre, and then he went to Cleveland. But Quantrill's pitched very well of late. They're a plus 145 dog, Cleveland. And how about this? Washington leads at Seattle 1-0, top of the 8th. Washington closed around 260, 270 as a dog. So that'd be a really good win for Washington if they can get that. And you have Dodgers, Brewers later, Andrew Haney and Adrian Hauser. Also Minnesota, Houston, the Astros, they're laying 200 there, 220. Framber Valdez and Dylan Bundy on the mound in that game. You also have Cubs, Cardinals rather, at Wrigley, Reds, Phillies in Philadelphia. That was a wild game last night that Philadelphia won. And that's a look at the games for tonight inside of Major League Baseball. And then you have NFL preseason that continues tomorrow. You have, I believe you have 2 games. You have Packers, Chiefs, and 49ers, Texans as the 2. And then you have 4 games Friday, a bunch Saturday, and the final game Sunday, Giants, Jets to wrap it up before we get to the regular season. And we start 2 weeks from tomorrow with the Bills and the Rams in Los Angeles. So that's our look at all of that. Now let's take a quick look at our hot handicappers at Vegas Insider, and we'll begin with our NFL handicappers. Of course, a couple days off before they come back. Kevin Thomas, who's actually going to join the show tomorrow. Looking forward to talking to him. He's on an 8-1 run in the NFL. Paul Bovey will be with us on Friday. He's 7-2 in the preseason. So you could find their NFL picks for the upcoming week at Vegas Insider. Go to the NFL Expert Picks page and buy picks, and you can buy their picks and go from there. Now, hot baseball handicappers, and we have AAA Sports, 8-1 run the last 9. Reno Johnny, who still is the money leader, 10-2 run. Is at nearly 8 units the last few days. So you could find some hot Major League Baseball handicappers for tonight with the handful of games. Then, of course, going through the rest of the regular season, go to the buy picks page on our Major League Baseball arena at Vegas Insider, and you can find all of that there. You can purchase daily picks, monthly picks, 3-day pass. You can do all of that at Vegas Insider, and you'll be all set with that. So before we actually want to tell you once again about Bet365. And Vegas Insider has done a great thing with a great partnership with Bet365. They've teamed up to offer new users an amazing welcome offer. Bet365 Sportsbook is offering an exclusive bonus. Customers can bet $1 and get $200 in free bets. Users must use the code NJVIP at sign-up and be located in a legal betting state where Bet365 is licensed. This is for new users only, and full terms and conditions apply. That is Bet365, and you can check them out today. My thanks to Kyle Hunter for joining us on the show tonight. And he was able to break down a lot of his college football thoughts for week 0. And of course, not a big slate for week 0, but then week 1 next week, you got a lot of great matchups. You have Ohio State, Notre Dame, one of them, of course, Georgia, Oregon, FSU, and LSU. They play Sunday night, Labor Day weekend. So a lot going on as far as college football goes. And it all begins next Thursday with week 1. So you really get back into the swing of things with college football. So our thanks to Kyle Hunter at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter. And coming up tomorrow, Kevin Thomas will join us to discuss some NFL as well as some college football and some baseball. So looking forward to talking to him for the first time. And also a programming note, tomorrow, don't forget about Chasing That Paper at 11 a.m. Eastern with Joe Osborne. You can find it on Vegas Insider. And Joe, of course, brings the energy in the morning. And you can find Joe's show on Vegas Insider or on our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider TV, Chasing That Paper, tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. My thanks to Spencer Ray. Great job running the show once again. I am Kevin Rogers. We will talk to you again tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern, down to the wire. And as always, best of luck with your bets.